didn't think I was gonna get emotional. Hey there, welcome back to Limabean Living. If you are new here, my name is Emily. And before I get into what this whole video is about, I just want to remind you guys that we are so close to 500 subscribers. And once we hit that 500 mark, we will be giving a Starbucks gift card away. So make sure you guys turn on notifications and stay tuned for that. I'm super excited and I'm so thankful to have all of you guys as part of this little Limabean family. But in today's video, I am actually going to be sharing Aubrey's birth story, and it's kind of like part of a series as to why I am super terrified to be pregnant again. So let's get into it. So overall, my pregnancy with Aubrey was pretty easy. I really didn't have that much morning sickness. And there were a few times where I thought I had horrible heartburn. It turns out that I actually had gallstones, and that apparently is, can be a side effect of pregnancy. So here I was like thinking I was having a heart attack and was like, this is the heartburn that people are talking about? And it turns out that no, I actually had really bad gallstones. And I'll kind of save the details of that probably for a later video in this little series. But overall though, my pregnancy was really easy. I did fail my first glucose test, and so I had to go and take the 3-hour one, and I passed that one. But, because Aubrey was kind of a bigger baby, I was kind of more monitored than probably the average pregnancy. And I actually had to move across country from Washington to Texas when I was like 6 months pregnant with her. So that probably wasn't the best, or the most ideal situation for someone who was like super pregnant. So yeah, the pregnancy was pretty easy. I'm not really worried about being pregnant again. I'm really just more concerned about the end of the pregnancy and having to give birth. So I actually ended up being induced at 38 weeks with Aubrey. She was measuring very large, and while I probably could have had much less carbs in my diet, I wasn't eating super unhealthy, but because I was having carbs, I think the doctors at least seemed to imply that that's maybe why she was a little bit too large, and they were worried about me having to have a C-section. So I was induced at 38 weeks. I went into my doctor's appointment on September 12th, like at 11 or 10 in the morning. And I don't remember how dilated I was, but like it wasn't anything substantial. And so, the doctor was like, okay, I think we're gonna induce you today. So I went to the hospital. Juan and I literally like walked across the parking lot and like this little like side street, and there was the hospital. So we checked in and we got our room, and then we were assigned another room, and then we went back to the original room. And so it was like, come on, get your act together. Like, let's just do this, So I got settled. One piece of advice that I was not expecting, but ended up being true. My sister said that the little like IV they give you in your wrist hurts more than the epidural shot. And I have to agree. It was more painful to get the little IV in on this part of my hand than it was to get the epidural, and I'll get to there. But I got the little IV, got all set up, got started on Pitocin. So I had to stop eating probably around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And by like midnight, things weren't progressing. They were even talking about like inserting like a balloon that they would then blow up so that I would get more dilated. And that just sounded super uncomfortable. And so they said, you might want to consider getting the epidural. And meanwhile, let's, think back. I had expectations of my birth story or whatever. And I was expecting, to deliver vaginally, and if I could make it without the drugs, then that's great, but I wasn't going to completely rule out an epidural. So when they started talking about inserting a balloon in me, I was like, okay, let's get the epidural. So I got the epidural at like midnight pretty much. I'm just gonna round because I don't remember the exact time, but it was pretty close to midnight, and Juan actually watched it. I wish I could have watched it. I don't mind watching like me get drawn blood or anything like that. So, oh well, I guess I missed out. Things weren't progressing very much and I wasn't super dilated. And I want to say it was like at 6 or 7 p.m. on the 13th. Remember, I checked into the hospital on the 12th at like noon or 1. And I stopped eating at 2 or 3 on the 12th. So it was well over 24 hours when I finally got to be like 10 centimeters dilated, and it was time to push and nothing was happening. The only thing that was actually happening while I was pushing, every time they'd, push for 10 seconds, then it was like relax and breathe. Every time I relaxed, my heart was like fluttering really, really weird. And I didn't know if that was normal, first of all. No one ever said anything like that to me in, my little research leading up to heading to the hospital or whatever. And part of me was a little worried, like this doesn't, I don't know if this is normal. So I didn't know if my body was gonna be able to handle it. And the look on the doctor's face, I just was reading into it like he was not seeing like any progression. He saw Aubrey's little head like start to squeeze out and then like go back in. And it just felt like every time I was pushing, like nothing was happening. Like there wasn't any progress. There wasn't any motivation to keep pushing because it was just like nothing's happening. And then in the middle of all this pushing and whatnot, since nothing was happening with me, the doctor had to leave and go deliver someone else's baby. Everyone else in the delivery hallway was, pushing babies out, and here I am with mine like stuck inside of me. When the doctor left, so did the nurses. It was just me and Juan. And while the doctor was gone, I felt the urge to push again. But I'm like, no one's here to catch a baby if for some reason this push is successful. So finally the doctor comes back and I'm like, let's give it another try. Like I really don't want to have a C-section. And 1 or 2 more pushes and like still it looked like nothing was happening. And if the doctor's faces and if what they were telling me sounded like, oh yes, we're seeing progress, maybe like 3 more pushes, 4 more pushes or whatever, maybe I would have continued. But with my heart fluttering and with the look of like, this isn't happening on their faces, I was really distraught because I really, really did not want to have a C-section. Both my sister and my mother have delivered like 10-pound babies. I was like, even if my baby's 10 pounds, like I should be able to push this baby out. I have large hips and like I'm made for this. And yet nothing was happening. And I remember like crying. I remember being so frustrated because it was just kind of like why me? Why could my mom? Why could my sister do this? What's wrong with my body? I couldn't help but feel like less of a woman. And I'm not trying to say that people who have C-sections are less of a woman, but that's how I felt. I felt like something was wrong with me. My body wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. And I decided to go ahead and get the C-section. So, they got me ready. They brought me to the operating room. Because I had already had the epidural for so long, it was like starting to wear off. So they had to like kind of readjust like how much I was getting or whatever. And I was proud of one moment in the operating room because I made like all the staff laugh. They were like, please state your name and what we're going to be doing. So I said my name, and then I was like, and you're going to cut me open and take out my baby. And they were expecting me to say, perform a C-section, but they all like were caught off guard and started laughing. And so, I was a little bit proud of the fact that one of my jokes actually had a good response. And I really wish, like, maybe I watched too much Grey's Anatomy, but I really wish there was like a mirror on the ceiling so that I could watch them as they were taking her out. But, they didn't. Juan got to see everything. Lucky him. But as the doctor was trying to take out Aubrey, he was like, no wonder you couldn't push her out. Like, she was getting stuck as he was trying to pull her out of the incision. And she was a very, very large baby. She was 10.05 pounds. And they measured her at 23 inches long, but when she left the hospital, she was measured at 21.5. So that extra 1.5 inches, I'm thinking, was a big cone head of me trying to push her out and just nothing. You know, then they told us that it's a girl, and they were asking like, okay, what's her name? And we already knew what her name was going to be. We knew it was going to be Aubrey if it was a girl. So, you know, she got her name, and I was happy to hear her cry. I forget what the acronym is, but like her score was a pretty high score, but she had to be taken away to the NICU. And so pretty much they were like, here, kiss your baby. And as I'm like laying on the table, I got to kiss her, and like we took one picture with her, and then she was like whisked away, and I was, you know, transferred over to like the little resting room to then eventually be transferred to my own like recovery room. And that is kind of her birth story. In part 2, I am going to be sharing with you guys kind of the traumatic events that took place in the week that followed Aubrey's birth as more explanation as to why I am terrified of having more children, even though I want more children. But to kind of summarize this video in like a sentence was, giving birth to Aubrey made me feel like less of a woman. As odd as that may sound, it sounds contradicting. I just felt like a failure. And in talking with some other people who have had similar experiences, I know that I'm not alone in feeling that way. I didn't know that some women like push for 4 hours, but with my heart fluttering the way that it was, like I didn't know if that was normal. I didn't speak up about it because just everything's going on, and I'm in my head, but also trying to, you know, like push a baby out. And it was just very traumatic for me. Part of me was even a little upset with God. I had prayed a lot about having a natural vaginal birth. I really felt like at peace that that was going to be the case. It was a little difficult to be put into a situation where part of me felt like God had answered my prayer and said, you know, don't worry about a C-section, you'll deliver vaginally. And then to feel like I need to make this decision, like nothing's happening. Do I continue to try to push and, you know, maybe things go wrong with the baby and in hopes that, you know, God will follow through? Or do I listen to my body and you know, the doctors' faces that are right in front of me? Like, I didn't like being put in that situation. Part of me felt like I gave up too quickly. In retrospect, you know, looking at other people's birth stories. But I recognize that, you know, obviously Aubrey is a healthy little girl right now. I'm blessed to have her. And, you know, what's done is done. I recognize that I can't take that decision back, even if it wasn't really a decision that I would have to end up making. You know, let's say had I tried 5 more pushes or whatever and still nothing happened. I do hope that if I get pregnant again, hopefully I can have a VBAC, which for those of you who don't know, it stands for vaginal birth after C-section. So I do really hope that that's a possibility. I will have had more than 1.5 to 2 years of like healing from that surgery. So, you know, I think it's not like I got pregnant right away and it's kind of a guaranteed that, okay, well, you're probably gonna have a C-section. But the thing that scares me is the fact that I couldn't push Aubrey out. It makes me fearful that it really is something that's kind of wrong in maybe my bone structure, or, you know, however it is down there, like maybe I'm unable to push a child out, or it could just be because she was too big. But what if my baby's smaller and I still can't push it out and I have to do the whole C-section all over again? There's so many little fears that kind of sit with me. It's not like, it wasn't like, you know, something was wrong with Aubrey and I wasn't dilated all the way and they needed to get her out right away and that's why I had the C-section. No, I was 10 centimeters dilated trying to push her out and nothing was happening. And that, I think, is what makes me more fearful for the future, for a future C-section, than if it had to happen for a different reason and not because of maybe the way my anatomy is. So anyways, thank you for watching this little video, or this long video, however it turns out to be. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Let me know maybe your birth stories, your C-section stories, whatever experiences you guys had down in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for your support, and keep an eye out for the giveaway that will be coming up as soon as we hit 500 subscribers. You've made it to the end of the video. If you didn't know already, my name is Emily from Limabean Living. Welcome, we are so happy to have you. We post videos every Monday and Friday on a variety of content: lifestyle, cooking, cleaning, military life, DIYs, encouraging mathematical development in children, and so much more. Thank you so much again for watching, and until next time.